Bacon, red meat, and cancer. What the World Health Organization said. It didn't say. Have you ever wondered why the World Health Organization labels bacon a type 1 carcinogen or unprocessed red meat as a type 2A carcinogen? Well, I asked AI to tell me, and it came back with some interesting reasoning, to say the least. I asked ChatGPT what paper or set of papers caused the WHO to classify bacon as a carcinogen. To which it responded, when the WHO, especially its cancer arm, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, classified processed meat like bacon, so that's the key there. That's one key detail. It's not just bacon. As a Group 1 carcinogen, it wasn't the result of a single paper, but rather the culmination of a comprehensive review, which is what I thought anyway. Here's how the link was established. Okay, great. You ready? What led to the classification? Evidence base. Over 800 studies. Wow. So is it the case that the more studies there are, the more informative the conclusion actually is, necessarily? So if every single one of the 800 studies or a million studies was done improperly or poorly or reported improperly or poorly, does that mean that you should listen to the aggregate conclusion just because of the sheer quantity? It's interesting, because from my understanding, no. So in October of 2015, so this is actually quite recent, an IARC working group of 22 experts. Ooh, wow. Experts, whatever the hell that means nowadays. Because when have the experts not failed us in the last 10 years, especially? Or decades? From 10 countries evaluated the cancer risk. Oh, and there we go. See, first error. Risk. You see that word risk there? That implies probability. That implies causality, actually. And if you actually understand science, if you really understand it and you're a responsible individual that isn't addled by pride and arrogance and hubris, then you understand that in the area of statistics, especially inferential statistics, but also descriptive, by the way, I put a lot of emphasis on inferential, even descriptive, okay? You cannot inform upon causality. The science itself makes no claims about causality, precisely because it can't do that unless you are in a hypothetical vacuum. Causality in science is an ideal that you must strive to attain while understanding that you will never, ever absolutely attain it. Spurious variables, confounding variables that are uncontrolled for. Okay, so any words that imply probability, especially when trying to extrapolate the results or the findings in descriptive statistics to an entire population. So now you're employing inferential statistics with a confidence interval and to a corresponding confidence level, standard errors, t-distributions, blah, blah, blah. Okay, nope. So no, they didn't evaluate the cancer risk. What they evaluated was a cancer incidence in a subset of the overall human population, which also changes every second due to thousands of births and thousands of deaths. So, cool. Of both red meat, so interesting. According to the researchers, was it left up to them to define what that was? The answer is yes. Okay. And processed meat. So we need to understand that we need to inquire about the definition of that. Seriously. And was the processed meat associated with anything? Like, for example, did you label hot dogs processed meat? They probably did. Was it always eaten with a bun? Yeah. Okay. They based their decision on a review of more than 800 epidemiological studies. Wow. So it's all longitudinal epidemiological nonsense. Okay. Here are the flaws with epidemiology. Rather, the limitations is probably the better word. Association, not causation. That's what it can inform upon. Okay. Let's stick to this, though. Not only can it not inform upon causality, which I already covered, the associations that are often found in epidemiological studies are incredibly weak. If they're doing a prospective cohort study where they actually compare two types of populations, these are types of studies where at the end they have a ratio, like a hazard ratio is what they call that, where they measure the incidence, not risk, the incidence of an intervention group to a control group. And then they find the ratio. So really the quotient, not a ratio, but now I'm actually being captious and pedantic. And so anyway. In those situations, the differences between the populations are often tenths or hundredths of thousandths of incidents of death per person per year of follow-up. When you actually convert the relative outcome statistics to an absolute outcome statistic. And if you multiply that value by 100 for a 100-year lifespan, for example, if you're going to actually think of it as a chance, then the utility of that number, that figure, is much, much less than nothing at all. Okay, so that's the problem with these. That's one of the very many problems and limitations of these studies. Okay. Number 2 is publication bias. So if there's 3 different studies in epidemiology that are released in an epidemiological journal that are published, you must ask yourself the question, how many other studies were done in this exact same way that provided or yielded is probably a better word to use, a different result or an antithetical result to this that weren't published because of publication bias, because of the biases of the scientific journals themselves. Okay, so that's a problem. Arbitrary selection criteria. This is actually mainly a problem with respect to the criteria that is sort of established as being criteria for studies to be able to be included in your meta-analysis or meta-analyses. You can say English only. It's completely arbitrary. English only, men only. Sometimes that's done intentionally for the sake of actually being more informative. Other times it is done tactically and strategically in order to basically construct a meta-analysis that actually results in results that reinforce your own ideological positions on diet. So that's another problem. They're done on people that are genotypically and phenotypically different from one another. So do you believe that your genes have any influence over disease presentation? Because if you do, well, then, can these results be extrapolated to any group not studied? No, it can't. Okay. Most of the time, epidemiological studies are done on very aged populations in order to ensure the occurrence of deaths in the studies, because one of the major primary outcome variables that's studied is mortality. So that's a problem. You've got the problem of, well, I just mentioned relative outcome statistics problem, the relative versus absolute outcome statistics in the first part of this. And then I'm struggling to figure out the other two. What can help me is actually looking into my book, Contrainidicated, where I elaborate on this and expound upon it in far further detail than I am right now. Second edition, by the way, is out now if you haven't bought this book already. Link in the description below for paperback, hardcover, ebook, and self-narrated audiobook edition, because you know me, or at least you should. If you don't, I'm all about authenticity. So let's actually get in here and look at the other two that I'm not thinking of. Yes, of course. The problem with multivariate regression. Basically, the idea that you can stack a bunch of univariate regressions on top of each other and you can get a more informative result when actually you get the exact opposite. One of the first things you learn in science, statistics especially, is that every single assumption that you base your results on introduces more error, and every single error can be thought of as a random variable and therefore existing within a probability distribution, however that distribution is characterized, normal, skewed, whatever it may be. And every single assumption, every single random variable multiplies. It doesn't add together. They don't add together. They multiply. Error squared, error cubed. And it's actually worse than error cubed or error to the fourth, because error to the fourth, error cubed, all these things, they imply that the error itself, the multiple errors, are identical to each other when they're not. It's actually error x times error y times error z. It's not anything to the power of anything, actually, which makes it even more uninformative. And what you can get is a result in your analysis that is completely backward. You inflate the power of the result, but sometimes you get an entirely different result from what was studied. It entirely 180 degrees backwards. It's diametrically opposed to what was actually observed. So in other words, it's fabrication. It's lying. It's lying to the public. Okay. You don't do that. The only thing that you can actually responsibly do is you can, in order to control for, oh, well, what about in the population? Let's say you study 5,000 people and 500 of them reported to be smoking during that time period. Well, what you can do is, if you're looking at results and you want to control for smoking, instead of adding something into the regression to try and control for that, you can remove the smokers and then see. Because then what you're doing is it's already being accounted for. The error, you're not really introducing error. You're not introducing error at all. You're just getting a smaller and smaller sample size, which will influence your signal to noise ratio, by the way. But it's reflected in the signal to noise ratio. You're not doing any problems with that. Okay? You're not introducing error. You don't introduce error if you're going to be a responsible scientist. Scientists report what they observed, not what they think they would have observed if they had done the study differently in an ideal world. Okay, so that is the sixth problem. And then really the last problem that I was thinking of was that it's all based on respondent data. All of it. People lie. People forget. What did you have for breakfast 2 weeks ago? Because let me tell you, if you're a carnivore, if you eat a carnivore diet, because those are different, you are a carnivore, whether you like it or not. So am I. But if you eat a carnivore diet, even as simple as a carnivore diet is, I don't know what I had for breakfast 2 weeks ago. I don't. I have no idea. So now you can imagine how difficult it is to figure that out whenever you eat a normal diet. Good luck. So anyway, let's actually get back into this. So more than 800 epidemiological studies. 800, yeah. So we already covered the limitations with this. Do you think that 800 of them mean anything? Does quantity mean anything when there's that many limitations? Seriously. Conducted across diverse populations and diet patterns. Great. Cool. Key findings. Ooh, well, they actually provided a link. You know what? Let's look at the link here. EWG. What is this? Bacon, red meat, and cancer. What the World Health Organization said. It didn't say. Wow. The finding of the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, that processed meats like bacon, ham, and sausage definitely cause colon cancer. Right, so you see that word cause there? Was it able to inform upon causality at all? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. So association doesn't equal causation. It's the first thing that's taught in statistics. Seriously. I mean, it's so trite that the fact that I have to continue saying it, me saying it over and over and over again, has become so trite that I have made a shirt that says exactly this. Link in the description below for that, by the way. Association doesn't equal causation. Association doesn't equal causation. Also indicated as opposed to contraindicated. Again, buy now if you haven't already. Because we're all indicated as in this space, aren't we? In terms of how we live, what we eat, what we say. Right? Correct. So, definitely cause colon cancer. Nope. There was an association between reported consumption of these types of meats. So, healthy user bias, unhealthy user bias. Completely uncontrolled confounding variables there. What else were these people doing? What else were these people not doing? Genotypically and phenotypically different from each other. They were doing different things before the study began as well. They had different lifespan or lives before the study began. People lie, people forget. Good. And what was the strength of that association? And also, if it was a prospective cohort study, what were the differences in the associations themselves? So how strong were each of the associations? And then what was the absolute difference? Yeah, that'll be good. And red meat probably does. Oh, yeah. Definitely cause colon cancer. And that red meat probably does. So not probably, because the word probably, by definition, is implying probability, which can't be informed upon, can it? No, not even actually in that study. Because if you did it again, could you guarantee that would happen? That would be the probability? Yeah, no. Provoked conflicting and likely confusing reactions on its announcement yesterday. So when was this written? 2015. Told you so, cried vegetarians. Because they don't understand how to interpret science. So, ridiculous, replied the meat industry. So, do we base our opinions on meat consumption based on what the meat industry says? It's not saying that. I'm not saying that this person said that, but just want to clarify that that's not what we do. I don't give a flying what the meat industry says. I genuinely don't care. Okay. IARC says the same thing about sunlight. Yeah, think about that for a second. The very thing that provides life on Earth, that actually allows for the cultivation and production of life, the existence of life on this planet, that's a carcinogen. Good. Now, to be fair, sunlight has influence over cancer development, because if you get too much of it, it can damage mitochondrial DNA, which is the common denominator in all cancer. It's just this. It's supposed to highlight how messaging matters. Okay, that's what matters. A response put out before IARC had even made its formal announcement. Right. Okay. Meanwhile, many consumers probably threw up their hands in frustration. Doesn't everything give you cancer? Or isn't everything associated with cancer development because people get cancer? People that do many different things all across the world get cancer? Well, no, not everything. Well, why not say that? Because everything's associated. Water consumption. Were these people drinking water? How many of them were drinking water every single day? Oh, well, then water is associated. Water increases your risk of colon cancer by blank %. Why didn't they choose that? Why didn't they choose it? No, not everything. But although the full study has not yet been released, well, and I don't give a fuck. Okay, even if it is released, I don't give a fuck what it says. Okay, we already covered the limitations. It can't inform upon anything. IARC's press release said its findings were definitive. A panel of 22 experts considered, so appeal to consensus and appeal to authority. Appeal to authority, consensus, actually. Appeal to popularity, in other words. Considered more than 800 studies. Who gives a fuck? And now puts into question their interpretation of the data. So, conducted over the past 20 years of associations between more than a dozen. Oh, so you see that word? See that word there? Associations. Look at that word there on the screen. Look at that big, beautiful blue word there. Little black word highlighted in blue. Associations. Right. Okay. Between more than a dozen types of cancer and eating meat. Yeah, and also doing what else? Doing what else and not doing what else? And also, what else had these people done before the study began? And also, did these people lie and forget? Also, what was classified as red meat and processed meat? Lots of questions here. More than answers, actually. It's important, however, to look closely at what the IARC said. And I think we already did that. I think we're done. I really do. Processed meats were classified as Group 1 carcinogens, IARC's highest warning level. Keep that in mind, by the way. Keep that in fucking mind. Okay. Based on, quote, sufficient evidence in their opinion. Good. So have the experts been wrong before? Do they have the capacity of being wrong? Right. Okay. In humans, that the reported consumption of processed meat, whatever the hell that is, according to them. Okay. According to whom, on the basis of what? Okay. Causes. So, can you inform upon causality with an association? Can you do that at all under any circumstances? No. By the way, even for the erudite amongst you, just understand that even if you yield an R-squared value in a linear regression of 1, theoretically, that does not inform upon causality necessarily. You know why? Because you can have a spurious variable that has an equal effect on X and Y that makes them entirely associated with each other 1-to-1, but they're not causally associated with each other. You can also have an R-squared value of less than 1 between two variables that are causally associated with each other. So what the f*** are we even talking about? What the f*** are we even talking about? Jesus. Some of us don't attend the Church of Science on Sundays. Okay, some of us actually understand that what you're worshiping isn't anything even closely approximating truth-yielding material. All right? Not in this field. As Mark Twain once said, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. And you know what? He didn't pull that out of his damn ass. Okay? Anyway, cool. Red meat was classified as a group 2A, probable carcinogen. Right, probable. Probably in their opinion or probably factually? Because if it's factual, then that's a fact that it's false. Because it can't inform upon that. Okay? This is an opinion based on, quote, limited evidence. Right. Wow. Well, so does that mean that this sufficient evidence up here is also limited because it had the same limitations? Limited evidence that the consumption of red meat, no, the reported consumption, causes cancer. Yeah, you have no evidence to support that claim, actually, at all. See, this is the thing about associations. A lot of people think this is a nihilistic viewpoint. You need to study epistemology, you need to study philosophy and truth, and you need to understand what it means to anyone that's actually saying that. There's nothing wrong with associations inherently. Associations are associations. You can formulate opinions on those associations, and you can influence decision-making on that and guideline making on that. That's fine. Just represent ambiguity in the statements regarding those, and then you're fine. And if you have any problem with that, you are a prideful, haughty, arrogant with way too much hubris. You need to swallow your damn pride, because I have no patience for it. None. At all. Okay? You can form opinions on it. That's it. Okay? You do anything more than that, you're a dangerous. You know why? Because as soon as you start saying things like, red meat causes cancer, it causes cancer, guys, because this association is, well, an association that is strong enough to inform upon that because I said so. Because I think so. As soon as you start saying that, you give the government the authority, because, I mean, why wouldn't they have the authority if you say something like something causes cancer, to ban the damn thing for the safety of others, or to put warning labels and manipulate the public. Unfucking believable. You're dangerous. You're dangerous to anyone out there that wants to say something like that. Okay? As soon as you say something like, I think personally that it causes cancer, well, I might think you're silly, but literally, I don't care. I'm fine with that. Okay, you have your opinion. Fantastic. Whatever. Based on limited evidence that the consumption of red meat causes cancer in humans, and strong according to whom on the basis of what? Value judgment statement. That's what we call that. Okay. Strong mechanistic evidence. Mechanistic evidence. Right. What you meant to say was mechanistic speculation. So more opinions. So more reductionism, more fallacies of the single cause. That's a logical fallacy by name. Unbelievable. Which is, again, ignorance. That's like if you went into a clock tower with all those gears running. And you looked at the clock tower and you looked at like one gear or something. And then you said, oh, you know what? I know how this gear spins. I know what influences it. So now I know how the whole thing works. Wow. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Yeah. I bet you do. Yeah. This association, oh, wow, wait, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Mechanistic evidence of a carcinogenic effect. So you see that word effect, which is the conjugate of cause, which can't be informed upon in epidemiology. You see that word? See that irresponsible reporting of that science? Yeah, I love it. Don't you? Don't you love that? And also the carcinogenic, so the suffix genic, right? Which means that something is causally involved in the production or generation, rather, of something else. So another causal claim. You see that word there? Yeah, good. This association, yeah, see how they just contradict themselves right there? Yeah, good. This association was observed mainly for colorectal cancer. Oh, so also they're extrapolating to other cancers too. That's good. That's always responsible to be doing. But associations were also seen, yeah, of what strength and in what populations, what was the sample size, what was the duration of the study, what else were these people doing, what else were these people not doing, okay? And how accurate was the reporting itself because it was based on respondent data. Again, same questions. Okay. We're also seeing for pancreatic cancer and prostate cancer. So what? So what? I don't care. Were all these people drinking water? Well, water increases your risk, doesn't it? According to their logic. So no, you can't do that. You can't say that responsibly at all. Okay, cool. The scientists concluded that, so basically conclusions, so more opinions, right? That each 50 gram, 1.8 ounce portion, right? Right. So they split them up into quintiles too. That's also what they did. Good. So I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with the reporting of this. I'm familiar enough with the conducting of this. They split them up into quintiles, basically. And then they measured the relative differences in the incidence rates of their primary outcome statistics or their primary outcome variables amongst the groups. That's what they did. And then they found an average percentage point difference, which if you're finding an average, wow, that means that there's a standard deviation involved, assuming normality and or symmetry in your distribution, by the way. Okay, so mean plus or minus SD, standard deviation. You do not report a standard error, by the way, irresponsible to be doing because you cannot extrapolate the results in one group of people to another group of people responsibly in the area of human nutrition science. Inferential statistics has very, very specific applications, one of which, for example, is engineering. Okay? Not human nutrition science, where all of your cases are different. So you do not report a standard error, you report a standard deviation. Descriptive statistics, not inferential. Okay, so mean plus or minus SD or median plus or minus MAD, median average deviation. So 18% plus or minus, what percentage points? What was the signal to noise ratio? Was it adequate? Was it informative at all? Which is also based on arbitrary cutoffs, but you do need to establish some sort of objectivity within the realm of chaos. Okay, so I understand that. I'm a little forgiving there. Okay, so, but what was it? Can we see the study? Can we see the study? But anyway, each 50 gram, 1.8 ounce portion of processed meat, good. So we still haven't gotten into the definition of that, right? Eaten daily, no, reported to have been eaten daily. How often, how frequently were these food frequency questionnaires administered, by the way? Because one study I saw did it every 4 years. Now, let me ask you, new viewer, consistent viewer, old viewer, returning viewer. Let me ask you, have your behaviors remained completely constant with, let me even give you some leeway, with minimal variation for 4 years straight? Have they at all? Oh boy. Also, you can even ask more questions. I mean, there's more questions to ask. I mean, for example, if you're going to look at the strength of the associations, of course, you're going to assume that outliers were removed, and then you got to look into what criteria was used to even remove outliers, right? Because then there's the classic sort of rudimentary introductory way, which is Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR, and then Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. But also, were the residuals normally distributed, by the way? The distances between the regression line and the actual data points? Well, not the distances, the squared distances is what I should say. Scientists concluded that each 50 gram, 1.8 ounce portion of processed meat eaten daily over the course of a lifetime increases the risk. Nope. We already covered that, didn't we? Of colorectal cancer by 18%, right? So convert 18% into absolute values, right? Between the quintiles. Then what you must do is you must change this word risk. Okay. And then what you must do is understand that this is all based on respondent data. And also tell us what the standard deviation was behind this. Usually for proportions, which is effectively a percentage, depending on the context, there is no standard deviation. So if you're going to conduct a polling, like a poll, for example, of, how many people have a favorable opinion of a certain politician or something, you'll just get a percentage of yes or a percentage of no's. Like, oh, yes, I favor, or no, I don't favor. There's no standard deviation. There's no dispersion in that situation. But in this situation, they're looking at the average difference between quintiles. That's different. Right. Okay. That's more than 5 slices of bacon. And IARC said you'd have to eat that much every day for your whole life, a qualification lost in some of the headlines and news coverage. Also, even if you did that, that can't inform upon your probability of developing anything, your risk of developing anything. We're done. Okay? A qualification law. Yeah. Okay. The green-leaning London daily The Guardian said in an editorial, strong evidence, again an opinion, of a weak effect. No effect at all, actually. None. Also weak, another value judgment statement, is too easily read as strong evidence of a large effect. It's not effect at all. It's not an effect at all. Okay? And stories are written to make this exciting confusion easier to fall into. Conversely, if the effect is small or non-existent in terms of what is able to be informed upon, we tend to suppose that the evidence for it must be weak too. That inference is just as wrong. Tell us all about wrong inferences. Tell us all about wrong inferences. Good. So what's the bottom line? The risk of developing cancer from processed or red meats is low. No, you have no evidence to support whether it's low or high. You have no evidence to support whether it's low or high or non-existent or definite. None. Compared to other known carcinogens. Known carcinogens. No, posited carcinogens. Like tobacco and asbestos. No, posited. Posited. Okay? That's the great thing about these. You know what? Here's a massive association between smoking and lung cancer. There's massive ones, and they're repeatable too. You know that? That's a key right there. And same thing with asbestos. Okay. The great thing is that since they're so strong, that goes, oh, that means that, oh, that's tough to ignore. Perhaps it causes cancer. What's the requirement for smoking? What's the requirement for inhaling asbestos? Is there anything else that is far less prevalent and implicated in these diseases that we can use instead in replacement, in substitution, just in case, because it may or may not cause cancer? Oh, there is? Okay, let's switch over to that. It's amazing, what happens whenever you exhibit some humility, okay? The study can't inform upon causality, but it's a strong association, according to me, because strong is a value judgment statement. And if a bunch of people look at that association and go, man, okay, you know what? I think that I'm going to base my life decisions on this association. The great thing is that they can do that. Good on you, man. All power to you. Okay, you should have that ability. Okay, as soon as someone says, well, actually, this relationship shows causality because, well, it's super strong because I said so. Well, then it becomes a real big issue, doesn't it? Okay, and it's rooted in, it's grounded in arrogance. Okay, but make no mistake, the study is one more compelling reason that if you can't cut out meat altogether, it's best for your health to strictly limit how much you eat. Oh, yeah, no. You said make no mistake. How many mistakes did you make in that statement alone? How many? You tell me. And make no mistake when you tell me. And for the health of the planet, classic 2015. If every American switched from beef to chicken, it could reduce greenhouse gas emissions as much as taking 26 million cars off the road. Wow. Well, that's based on a premise that may or may not be correct. And I'll leave it at that. Given these facts, facts. Yep, facts. Yep, they're facts. They're factual because they said so. Yep. EWG strongly encourages, so an opinion based on opinions, by the way, and assumptions, everyone to reduce the amount of processed and red meats in your diet. You remember when I asked for definitions about that and then I was never provided any answers at all? Remember that? Yeah, I remember that. EWG's Food Scores database, which rates more than 80,000 food products on nutrition, ingredients, and processing. So more opinions based on fallacious underpinning logic and reasoning, can be used to find healthier meats, in your opinion, because you can't inform on that either, like fish and chicken altogether. Instead of looking at what is healthy, look at what's indicated for your physiology according to the Darwinian principles of evolution and the subsequent principles of indication. How about that? How about that? Okay, what are our genes most evolved to genotypically withstand? Oh, but antagonistic pleiotropy. Two things there. Number one, provide me any unequivocal evidence that antagonistic pleiotropy pertains to a carnivorous diet. Okay, and number two, well, that sucks. Maybe as a result of transitioning to a carnivore diet, we've lost 10 years of potential genetic lifespan. Maybe we did. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You going to try and change your diet based on whim alone and see if it helps your lifespan at all? You're just going to randomly select things based on this or are you going to stick to what's tried and true? Seriously, genuine question there. And that's if that's even the case with a carnivorous diet, which I don't believe in the first place, because if you actually do comparative gene analyses, it looks like we should be living up to 120 years if we just got out of our own ways, with our genes having most evolved to genotypically withstand a carnivorous dietary approach. So that's interesting. Cool. Or at the very least, among processed and red meats, you can use it to select the better scoring ones. Oh, yeah. According to whom? On the basis of what? Okay. By the way, as EWG's Guide to Sunscreens has been saying for years, exposure to the sun's ultraviolet rays, in what amount, in what frequency, in whose genes, because let me tell you, let me ask, does a white person have the same amount of melanin and genotypic maximum ability to produce melanin in their skin as a black person? Does that have influence over the damage that one would sustain with UV radiation from the sun? Does it have any influence at all that you're not considering whatsoever? Just make a blanket general statement and guideline for literally every person across the planet. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's responsible to be doing. That's not arrogant at all. Good. Yeah. Sun's ultraviolet rays does increase the risk of skin cancer associated with. Done. But the meat industry's snarky response. Yeah. Snarky response. Now, instead of looking at whether it was snarky or not, how about you go ahead and look at the integrity behind the claim? I would love anyone to disprove anything that I've said in this video whatsoever. I love watching people desperately try and reinforce their positions with these like, ha, gotcha, actually, and it's just a completely fallacious nonsense, just erroneous. I love it. It's so funny. So please do it. Please do it. Increase my reach. Increase it. But the meat industry's snarky response to the IARC study ignored that inconvenient fact. Not fact. Not fact at all. Your opinion. Just as it did the study's actual findings that you misinterpreted and misrepresented, didn't you? Good. That is fantastic. That was the first study. That was the first article. Good. Key findings. Let's read what ChatGPT's little synopsis was, though. Processed meat classified as group 1, carcinogenic to humans based on sufficient evidence in humans that consumption causes colorectal cancer. Right? We just read that. We already covered that. Red meat, unprocessed, classified as group 2A, probably carcinogenic, supported by limited. Okay, so we already read that too. They also highlighted that in eating 50 grams. Yeah, we already read all that. Was one paper the one? No. Rather than hinging on a single study, IARC's conclusion was grounded in a meta-scientific review. Right. So here's the thing about meta-analyses. Meta-analyses are designed to basically aggregate all of the available scientific studies done on a particular topic into one sort of aggregate signal-to-noise ratio, aggregate conclusion, right? The problem with that, well, you have to look at the integrity of every single individual study done. For the aggregate signal-to-noise ratio to mean literally anything at all, okay? You also have to look to see if the studies are even comparable to begin with. Okay, were the results yielded in the studies the results of different methodologies? Because if they were, then they're different studies, even if they were studying the same thing. Meta-analyses. Give me a break. An assessment of an extensive body of data across multiple cohort and case-controlled studies. Oh, really? Control. Yeah, good. Not controlled. Why it made headlines. Media coverage often simplified the message, sometimes alarmingly. This is just a way of shirking responsibility for we're really shirking. No. This is a red herring. Is really what it is. It's a red herring fallacy, because oh well, they misrepresented it because look what they said. Look what they said. Don't look at what we said, which was also false, but look at the way that they misrepresented our misrepresentations. Yeah. Headlines prominently noted that processed meat like bacon was placed in the same category as asbestos and tobacco. Well, were they wrong? Were they wrong about that? This led to public confusion, as the IARC classification captures the strength of evidence that processed meat can cause cancer. No, can implies that it has been proven to have the ability to do so. If by can you effectively mean may, well, then it also can not as well. It may not. Okay. Every single time that you see a headline that says blank may increase your risk of blank by blank percent, increase may or replace may with may not. Do that. It's amazing how your perspective will change. Okay. But does not indicate how much risk it actually poses to an individual. It doesn't actually inform upon risk of any sort on anybody of any degree. Amazing, isn't it? For instance, smoking raises lung cancer risk dramatically. No, it doesn't. Okay. Well, at least the science can't inform upon that. Okay. That's your opinion based on strong inference in your opinion. Isn't that great? Not nihilistic, by the way, liberating. Okay. No, it's associated with lung cancer incidence that is extremely high in the thousands of percentage points. Okay. Thousands of percentage point differences. All right. Thousands, not 12 or 18 point differences. Okay. Thousands. And it's also able to be repeated on multiple different populations to the same caliber. Yeah, that's tough to ignore. Okay. While 2 slices of bacon per day, no, you pulled that number out of your damn ass. Okay. Only modestly elevate. No, elevate's a cause and effect statement. Done. We're done. Colorectal cancer risk, nope, not risk, from roughly 5% to 6% over a lifetime. This is just bread and circuses nonsense. It's just, it's playing with toys. Seriously. Like, this is what this is playing with a bunch of toys. You're just having fun with numbers. You're just in the number sandbox. Unbelievable. TLDR. Well, we did read it. What triggered the WHO's classification? A comprehensive evaluation by IARC in October 2015. See that word comprehensive, just a meretricious term in order to aggrandize the absolute unsubstantiated claims and inappropriate representation of results actually studied. In October 2015, of more than 800 studies, not any single paper, processed meat like bacon was put into group 1, meaning there is sufficient evidence, in their opinion, that it causes cancer. Well, there's actually, you know what? No, now we're not in the realm of opinions. Now we're in the realm of fact or not fact. There is not sufficient evidence because there's no evidence at all that proves that it causes cancer. Okay, so now it's no longer an opinion, it's just a false claim. Okay, specifically colorectal cancer. Great, cool. Red meat was put into group 2A, meaning it is probably carcinogenic. No, meaning they believe it is probably carcinogenic. The classification reflects quality of evidence. Yeah, tell us all about quality, not the magnitude of risk, which can't be informed upon to any degree whatsoever, which for bacon consumption, reported consumption, remains relatively low in absolute terms. It's neither low or high with respect to what the science can actually inform upon. Okay, I'm going to keep saying that. Would you like a summary of the most influential cohort studies or insights into the biological mechanisms behind meat and cancer risk? No, I have literally no interest in reading these studies at all. None. I've done it before. Trust me, I have done it. I have. But no, we're done. So if you ever, you know what? If you ever wanted to know why bacon was considered or is considered, all processed meat apparently, a group 1 carcinogen, That's why. It's because that's why, as someone on TikTok and Instagram likes to say. Anyway, it's because that's why. Yeah. That's why. Great. So, don't fear your bacon, by the way. Don't do that. Don't even fear the whole, oh, well, it has nitrates and nitrates in it. Yeah. You know where those come from? They come from plants. Compare the amount of nitrates and nitrates on bacon to the amount you'll find in plants. There's no nitrates and nitrates in actual bacon before curing, by the way. None. At all. Okay, so that's not anything to fear with bacon. It's in very small amounts, okay? And then people might go, well, what about the carbohydrates? Yeah, look at how many carbohydrates are in bacon, like conventional industrial bacon, per serving. Actually, per package. Look at the serving and then multiply the amount of carbs in that serving by the amount of servings in the entire package, and then tell me if it's really anything to worry about. The only thing that I would say is be careful with pork in the first place because of the absolute amount of really the fatty acid profile. And also, it's not too high in protein. Okay. From every inference we have, we are designed to eat biologically across our genome with very minimal variation given our ubiquity as a species for the last 13,000 years. So I'll give people that argument. The flesh and associated fat of large ruminant animals with added fat, given our modern context, it's an approximation. It's not a full-on thing. We didn't have added fat in the past. I'm not saying we did. In the forms of butter, tallow, lard, suet, and ghee, again, to taste, added salt to taste, and water. Eating when hungry is a general rule. Stopping when full is a general rule. You may need some individual tailoring and manipulation depending on your past metabolic history and health history, whatever. But that's why I said as a general rule, for the same reasons that we say that humans have 5 fingers and 5 toes, despite the fact that some people have 6 and some people have 4. So, anyway, if you enjoyed the video, if you learned something, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? It's very simple. It's very easy. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below as well. I want to know what you have to say about this as well. And also, once again, buy my book, Contrainidicated, a closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. If you have not bought that book already, also subscribe to the Patreon to gain access to 1 week early uploads, ad-free content, uncensored content, loads of Patreon exclusive uploads whenever I used to be uploading 1 exclusive video a week, basically. Loads of antiquated videos that precede my current activity online, way before I was ever a public figure. And also an exclusive Discord server for tier 3 members, by the way, if you're wanting to be a part of that. And also, finally, most nutrition coaches out there, they're completely winging it. No credentials, no science, just opinions, and maybe a 6-pack on Instagram to back it up, maybe. But here's the kicker. They get taken seriously because they call themselves coaches. That's all it takes. There are 0 legal requirements, 0 legal requirements to slap on that label. 0. I mean it, 0. Look it up. But what if you could be something more than a self-proclaimed expert? What if you could become internationally accredited, backed by real institutions, and mentored by people who actually know what they're talking about, like carnivore coach Peter, who's been doing this for over 20 years. I actually interviewed him a little ways back, and also very recently. Link in the top right corner of the screen for that to learn more about him and how he was led to carnivore. Or like Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, Dr. Abs, and yes, myself. We're the ones behind a carnivore-based certification program that goes deeper than meal plans and surface level macros. We're talking the Randall cycle, vitamin C, cholesterol, saturated fat, heart disease, ketone metabolism, gluconeogenesis, dopamine, food addiction, and how glucose actually damages your tissues on a molecular level. And you'll get to sit down live, face to face with me. If you've ever wanted direct access, this is really the only way to get it. At least to the degree that you're seeing here. We've paused enrollments for the summer, but the waitlist for September is open now. So if you're serious about becoming a certified nutrition coach who can actually speak with doctors instead of being dismissed by them, And if you want to stand out in a sea of clueless health influencers, then get on that list. And by the way, that's not all. We've also launched a fitness certification program, also internationally recognized and certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine and the Athletics and Fitness Association of America. And I've contributed a full module there too, covering hypertrophy versus hyperplasia, glucose metabolism during training, and why you don't need to carb load to build serious muscle. But here's the catch. I believe that there are only 2 openings left between the months of September and October for such a program. At the time of recording this, that's it. So if that's you, stop waiting, join the wait list now, because once the spots are gone, they're gone. And I hope to see you on the inside. And with that being said, join me next time when we are reacting to more pseudoscience, because that's really what it is, and misrepresentations of actual findings in research, and fear-mongering, and dangerous propaganda. So, till then.